Now again, PPF and opportunity cost. As I told you that economy has a limited amount of resources, and we saw from the diagram, the moment we are going to increase the production of computers, we are sacrificing the production of wheat. At the same time, if we want to have more of wheat, we must sacrifice production of computers. So that means production of computer has a cost in terms of the foregone production of wheat. At the same time, production of wheat requires some amount of computers to forego, and that is exactly what is we learned earlier as opportunity cost. Cost of something is what you sacrifice to get it. Okay, cost of something is what you sacrifice to get it. That means in a way, production possibility frontier is giving you an idea of opportunity cost. And more specifically, if you take the slope of this PPF, then that is nothing but the opportunity cost. Okay, look at here, the opportunity cost of an item is what we must give up to obtain it. So moving along the PPF involves shifting resources from production of one good to another. When we are coming down along the frontier, what is happening? We are allocating more and more labor. For example, now you go back to the frontier once again, look at this. If we move down, that means we are allocating more and more resources. What is the resource here? Labor. More and more labor towards producing computer. If we move up, then more and more labor is allocated for the production of wheat. Since here we assumed the PPF to be a straight line, what is the assumption we are making? We are making an assumption that what is the slope of the PPF? You can easily understand. Slope of the PPF is opportunity cost of one product in terms of the other. Okay. Since the slope of a straight line is constant wherever you go, whether you are up or down, at any point of a straight line slope is constant. So we are assuming that the goods can be substituted at a constant rate. That means opportunity cost is same along the PPF, which may not be realistic. Which may not be realistic, because you see, when you have 50,000 labor hour, some of your laborers are actually specialized to produce wheat. They are basically farmers. Some of your laborer are specialized for producing computers. They are basically engineer. So you have a pool of engineer and farmers. Okay, you have a pool of that engineer and farmers. Now, to start with, let us assume that to start with, you have all the laborers allocated for wheat production. Now, if you allocate or if you release some of your laborer from wheat production towards computer, you have to sacrifice some production of your wheat. Okay, some production of your wheat. Since all the laborers are producing wheat, initially, if you ask them, if you pull out some amount of laborers from here, yes, you have to sacrifice wheat production, but what will happen? See, you are basically asking the engineers to come out, and engineers are anyway not producing much of wheat, right? Because they are not specialized. So you are taking out one by one engineer from wheat to computer. So your loss in wheat production would be very minimal to start with, because engineers are anyway not producing much of wheat. But after some point of time, when all your engineers are already allocated for computer production, then what is happening, you are asking now, let's say, farmers to move out of their wheat production to computer production. In that case, the loss in your wheat production will be too much. Because now you are asking farmers to come out of wheat production towards computer. That is why initially the slope of the PPF should be low, and after certain point of time the slope should be higher. So that means initially slope should be lower and later on it should be higher. So what type of shape we should get? We should get a bow shaped PPF actually, a bow shaped PPF. That is the most realistic PPF. So that means what we understood from this, that slope of a PPF is nothing but the opportunity cost of one product in terms of the other. Okay, opportunity cost of computer in terms of wheat. If we want to produce more wheat, more computer, what is the amount of wheat that we are sacrificing? So that should be minimum to start with. Opportunity cost of computer should be minimum to start with, but it should increase later on. So that is what now we are going to learn. Okay. So society faces a trade-off, getting more of one good requires sacrificing some of the other. That is why slope of the PPF, as I told you, tells you the opportunity cost of one good in terms of the other. Look at here what is happening. The slope of a line equals the rise over run. This is a very important phrase. So the amount the line rises when you move to the right by 1 unit. Look at here. Slope is rise over run. So if you move from this point to this point, how much is your rise? Rise is basically here you are sacrificing 1000 units of wheat and you are gaining 100 units. Okay, 100 units is your rise and 1000 units is your run, rise over run. That is the slope. Okay, that is the slope of this line, and negative sign indicates it's a downward sloping, equals to minus 10. Since it is a straight line, the slope is everywhere minus 10. So that means what I am saying, opportunity cost of a computer is 10 tons of wheat. If you want to produce one extra unit of computer, you must sacrifice 10 tons of wheat production. That is exactly is meant by this particular diagram. Opportunity cost of wheat is 10 ton, opportunity cost of a computer is basically 10 tons of wheat. And that is same along the line. But as I already explained, that may not be a realistic situation. Okay, that may not be a realistic situation. Opportunity cost should not be constant. Now there are two countries, and what they are asking here, we have wine and cloth. These two commodities they are producing. So just by looking at this diagram, we have to tell which country has opportunity cost of cloth is lower. That means opportunity cost of cloth is basically how much wine production you must sacrifice to get one extra unit of clothing, right? So from this diagram, more is the line steeper, higher would be the slope, right? And higher slope means what will happen? Look at here. The PPF is not as steep as France for England. England, the PPF is flat actually, little flatter than the France. So that gives you a hint which has higher opportunity cost, right? As that means from this diagram, look at here, if you want to get one extra unit of clothing, let's say this extra unit of clothing, you have to sacrifice too much of wine production, because let's say from here to here, just because the line is very steep, when France wants to get one extra unit of uh, cloth, then they must sacrifice too much of wine production. But here, in case of England, if you want to produce more clothes, sacrifices in wine is not that much, because it's a flat line. So, opportunity cost of cloth in terms of wine is higher in France compared to England. Just by looking at the PPF itself, we can understand a steeper line means higher slope, and higher slope means higher opportunity cost. Opportunity cost of cloth in terms of wine. Now, PPF will also help us understand economic growth, right? Economic growth. So, with additional resources or an improvement in technology, the economy can produce more computers. So, when there is improvement in technology, what happens? That means technological improvement helps you produce more of both the commodities using the same amount of resources. So, what happens in that case? A technological movement, basically that means will take your boundary outward, will shift the production frontier outward, because you are now able to produce more of both the commodities using the same amount of resources. Look at this, what is happening. As a result of this, economic growth shifts the PPF outward. Economic growth through either technological progress, or if you have more amount of inputs available. So, there are two channels by which economy can grow, either by procuring more inputs or by technological advancement, and in both the ways production possibility frontier shifts outward. So, this is the shape of the PPF. The PPF could be a straight line or bow shape, depends on what happens to the opportunity cost. So, as I told you, if opportunity cost remain constant, slope is constant, PPF is a straight line. In the previous example, it was 10 tons of wheat for each additional unit of computer in our example. The way we set our example as if opportunity cost of wheat in terms of opportunity cost of computer in terms of wheat is 10 tons of wheat everywhere. But if the cost rises as the economy produces more of the good, the PPF is bow shaped. So, this is beer and mountain bikes. So, that means initially all the laborers are employed in beer production, and out of which some are mechanical engineers who are actually specialized in bike production. So, if you take some of them from beer production, your production of beer will reduce, but to a lesser extent. But as you keep on allocating more and more labor towards bike production, then what will happen? At some point of time, you will ask even the farmers who are supposed to be good in beer production to come and produce bike. At that point of time, your beer production will fall drastically. So, as the economy shifts resources towards beer, to mountain bikes, what happens? PPF becomes steeper. Why it is becoming steeper? Because now you have to sacrifice more and more labor, beer production. So, opportunity cost of mountain bike rises. Opportunity cost of mountain bike is defined in terms of beer production. Okay. Why it is so high here? Because here You have already allocated your engineers for mountain bike. Now you are asking the farmers to come and to produce a mountain bike. And as a result of which your beer production falls drastically. And that is why this bow-shaped PPF is actually a more realistic PPF, along which the opportunity cost varies. It is not constant. So, that is what they are explaining at point A. Most workers are producing beer, even those that are better suited for building bikes. So, do not have to give up much beer to get more bikes, because they were anyway not producing much beer, they are specialized for this. So, rise over on that formula will explain the slope. But if you compare to point B, at point B you are now asking people who are specialized for beer production to come for bike production. So, your beer production will fall drastically. Look at this. You are sacrificing too much of beer production, and slope at point B is much higher than slope at point A. So, PPF is bow-shaped when different workers have different skills. That is one point. So, that means I was assuming that in my pool of laborers, there are certain engineers, there are certain farmers. But if they are homogeneous, if they are either farmers or engineers, or if the laborers are equally skilled, then the opportunity cost would be same. And then we will get a PPF which is straight line, right. So, the PPF would be also bow-shaped when there is some other resources or mix of resources with varying opportunity cost. Here I have assumed only labor. If you assume capital, then also there is a possibility of this bow-shaped PPF. For example, different types of land suited for different uses, that is also another case where we can get bow-shaped. One type of land may be suitable for wheat production, another type of land is let us say rice production. Okay. So, when you allocate land from one purpose to another purpose, the fall in production in one commodity and rise in other commodity may not be same. It will vary. So, if we summarize, the PPF shows all the combination of two goods that an economy can possibly produce given its technology and resources. That is why the name called production possibility frontier. Okay. The PPF shows all the combination of two goods. Okay. That is why they are called production possibilities. Different possibilities are there, out of which one particular point the economy will select. Which particular point would be selected, and that is another question. That again depends on society's preference. At a particular point of time, if the society wants more of wheat, so probably the production plan will operate towards the upper section of the PPF where there was more wheat. At some point of time when you already have wheat so much and economy moves from agriculture to manufacturing towards service, probably economy needs more of computer, because there are a lot of software engineers available. So, at that point of time, economy will move from point A towards point B, where more computers are produced using less of wheat. Okay. The PPF illustrates the concept of trade-off and opportunity cost, efficiency and inefficiency, unemployment and economic growth. So, all this concept, how trade-off? Because it is very clear, if you move from one point to another along the PPF, you are sacrificing the production of one commodity to get more of the other. That is why there is a trade-off. Why there is opportunity cost? Trade-off itself indicates there is opportunity cost. So, whenever we are drawing PPF, we have to keep in mind opportunity cost of the product, which is measured along the x-axis, is in terms of the product which is measured along the y-axis. That is the slope of the PPF. So, slope of the PPF is defined as how much of the product which is measured on y-axis is sacrificed to get one extra unit of the product which is measured along the x-axis. In our example, opportunity cost of computer measured along the x-axis in terms of opportunity cost of wheat measured along y-axis. So, PPF tells you the opportunity cost. Efficiency and inefficiency, when you are producing on the frontier, that plan is efficient production plan because you are using all of your resources. When you are below the frontier, you are inefficient because you are not utilizing all of your resources available. That means there is unemployment in the economy. You can produce more of one commodity without sacrificing the other if you fully utilize your resources. That means there is some kind of unemployment prevailing in the economy. So, that is also we can get to know from the PPF. PPF can also explain economic growth by shifting the PPF outward. And how is it possible? There are two ways by which you can actually shift the PPF outward. Either you can have technological progress. Technological progress makes it possible to produce more output from a given level of input. That way, production possibility frontier will shift upward. It may so happen that all of a sudden you get more of some resources or factors of production. Then also it is possible to produce more output given the same technology. And shift in frontier indicates economic growth. And there are two important channels of economic growth, either by acquiring more factors of production or by technological advancement. A bow-shaped PPF illustrates the concept of increasing opportunity cost as you move from point A to point B. So, movement along the frontier towards downward indicates increasing opportunity cost. Okay, we have to sacrifice more of wheat production to get one extra unit of computer when it is bow shaped. And please keep in mind, once again I would like to remind, this is happening because we are assuming different people have different skill or expertise. Some laborers are specialized for computer production. Some laborers are specialized for wheat production. That is why opportunity cost is changing. But the moment I assume that everyone is either farmer or software engineer, or everyone has equal skill in production of computer and wheat, then opportunity cost would be same, PPF would be straight line. That is the assumption we have to make. For our working examples, if nothing is mentioned, please keep in mind that we will draw the PPF as straight line. If nothing is mentioned. And then we have microeconomics and macroeconomics. There are two broader ways by which the entire discipline, economics discipline, is divided into two, micro and macro. Micro means when the decision making happens at the micro level. For example, if you recall our 10 principles, we said that some of the principle helps you understand decision making at the micro level. What are those? People face trade-off, there is opportunity cost, rational people think at the margin. Then we said that people respond to incentives, All those things explains decision making at the micro level. Then at the macro level, what we are trying to understand, how the economy as a whole works. What happens when government prints too much money? What happens when there is government intervention? Whether there is a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. All those issues are related to the macroeconomics. This is a study of how households and firms make decisions and how they interact in the market. These are all the scope of microeconomics. Micro means small. At the smaller scale, how the firm is deciding how much output to produce, how much labor to hire, how the households are deciding how much to save, how much to work, all these things. Macroeconomics is basically the study at the economy wide phenomena, including inflation, unemployment, economic growth, so on and so forth. So these two branches of economics are closely intertwined. Okay. So they answer different question, but micro and macro, they are not different actually, because behavior of the economic agents at the micro level, we will have its implications at the macro level. So as I told you earlier, that economists, they have two roles. As a scientist, they will first explain the world using the models and assumptions, and then they will suggest policies. So as scientists, economics can make positive statement. Okay, positive statement, which basically attempts to describe the world as it is without having any value judgment. For example, and as a policy advisor, economists make normative statements which attempt to prescribe how the world should be. Please keep in mind, this should be is it something, when I say this should be like this, then I am attaching some kind of judgment. I am becoming judgmental, and that is normative statement. And positive is free from all this value judgment. Okay, it is a statement which will simply explain how the world is basically working. So positive statement can be confirmed or refuted. Normative statement cannot be, because that is what I am saying, everyone should do this. So this is a suggestion. Positive statement I can confirm or refute, because that is like a theory. So government employs many economists for policy advice. For example, in the US, president has a council of economic advisors who is the author of this many things. Okay. Similarly, in the Indian context, government employs many economists. They work in the government prime minister's advisory council, advisory board. They suggest policies to the ministries. Now, out of these examples, you need to learn to classify which are normative and which are positive statements. Look at this. Prices rise when government increases the quantity of money. Is it a positive or normative statement? So, see here, I am not attaching any value judgment. So, that means it is explaining the world. We already know from one of our principles that when government prints too much of money, then that leads to inflation. Rise in price is nothing but inflation. So it is basically a positive statement I am making. Now you can test this, whether this is actually happening or not. So this is a positive statement. I am not attaching any value. I am not saying whether the government should print too much of money or not. I am not saying anything. I am only explaining the world. If the government increases prints too much of money, it will lead to inflation. But I am not saying whether government actually should print too much of money or too less money. Not like that. Now, second one, the government should print less money. This is some kind of value judgment. It may be true for you, it may not be true for me, because that is you are suggesting something. So, how the world should be. The first statement is explaining how the world works. And here I am suggesting some policy. Government should print less money. That is why while the first one is positive, second one is a normative statement. A tax cut is needed to stimulate the economy. Okay, that is also a positive statement. An increase in the price of goods will cause an increase in consumer demand for video rentals. These are all positive statements. So, now you explain. Positive describes a relationship, could use data to confirm this. I can collect data and check whether actually printing too much of money is leading to inflation or not. The government should print less money. Normative, this is a value judgment, cannot be confirmed. Tax cut is needed to stimulate the economy. Again, another value judgment. Okay, I am suggesting some kind of thing. The tax cut, suppose a policymaker is suggesting that kind of thing, that if you cut the tax, then that will stimulate the economy. So, this is again a positive statement, describes a relationship. Statement need not be true to be positive. Okay. So, positive statement, as I said, you may not think, you should not think that positive statement, just because it is positive, it should always be true. No. A positive statement should be, it's like a theoretical argument. So, that can be either confirmed or refuted if you collect data, but normative statement cannot be. And why economists disagree? Because economists, they often give conflicting policy arguments. They sometimes disagree about the validity of alternative positive theories about the world. They may have different values and therefore different normative views about what policy should be accomplished. Okay, you and me, two different individuals, so I have a different value judgment, you have a different value judgment. So, I am saying, let us say I am suggesting government should not print too much of money. That means I am valuing more of I don't like much of inflation, that is why I am suggesting this. Another economist may be thinking at this point of time, we need more employment, that is why even printing some amount of money is also required. So, since the value judgment differs from one economist to another, they often disagree in their arguments. Yet there are many propositions about which most economists agree. So, ceiling on rents reduces the quantity and quality of housing available. Mostly they agree. 93% almost economists, they agree. Tariff and import quotas usually reduce economic welfare, they agree. United States should not restrict employers from outsourcing work to foreign countries, mostly they agree. Like this. Okay, you can, there are many examples by which we can check how many of them they agree, how many they not. Okay, effluent taxes and marketable pollution permits a better approach to pollution control. Mostly 78% of the economists, they agree. Okay, so with this we are just closing our discussion. So, this is who should study economics, everyone, starting from the president. Okay. So, that means in this particular discussion, what we have learned today, we have learned how the economists, they think. That means we learn how to think like an economist using economic models and assumptions. So, we started with circular flow of economy, and then we discussed in detail about the production possibility frontier. What does it mean? What is the slope of a production possibility frontier? And all those things related to production possibility frontier. And if we know these two models, circular flow and this PPF, using these two models we can actually explain many things. So that is why economic models are so important. With this we are closing our discussion today. Thank you.